Hey guys, Joey here, and in today's video, I'm going to show you 5 ways I like to use fuzz in a mix. There's a lot of examples, so let's get right into it. What I've got here is a bass DI running through some compression and a cab sim. The low end is nice, but the bass presence is totally buried. I'm going to add a distortion to make the tone more interesting and make it cut through. It's super easy to make a killer bass tone with JST Demon Fuzz. Just load it before the cab on the DI. Let's start with the sustain. This controls how much distortion is added. Next up is the tone. This shapes the overall frequency response from super bassy to a cutting treble. That already sounds pretty good. These are most of the controls that are found in a standard fuzz pedal, but what takes this from simple pedal to a powerful mixing tool is the advanced section. Here there's a bunch of mixing controls that make it easy to dial in a variety of distortion tones. I'm going to start with the compressor. By the way, if you want to check out how I dial in a compressor for a DI, click the link on the screen. That's sounding more consistent. The character knob lets me choose the shape of the distortion. It's basically a second frequency response control. Awesome! The Wicker and Alt circuit are toggles that clean up the top end and run a different modeled fuzz circuit. I'm going to turn them on so you can hear the difference. I've got a great distortion tone. Now let's bring the dry bass back in. Just turn down the mix knob. I'm hearing a little too much high end, so let's bring down that low pass. Great, this is a cool tone. I just want a little more body. A mid boost should help. And finally, I'm going to lower that output a bit to balance it with the song. Wow, the distortion brought this bass from a DI to a modern usable tone. Let's move on. Distortion is a key element of a dubstep bass. A dry growl bass sounds outdated and doesn't excite the mix as much. Check this out. It sounds cool, but adding distortion is going to really push it over the edge. I'm going to start by switching to the dry mode. This runs the clean and distortion signal in parallel. Now I can mess with the basic settings until the bass starts to get some teeth. Awesome. Since the signal is running in parallel, the volume knob gives me a lot of control over the distortion amount. Now let's dive into the advanced settings. I'm going to add consistency and body with the compressor. And I'll adjust the character until it fits the song. I want more distortion response from the mids, so let's do a boost. Add some clarity with the Wicker button. Finally, let's dial back the output so that it sits in the mix. Perfect. That definitely brought some aggression to this bass part. Rather than all-out distortion, this track calls for a more subtle saturation. I have a mono and stereo bass track. I'm going to start by collaring the mono track and ignoring the stereo bass track. Just like before, I'm running Demon Fuzz in dry mode. I'm going to start with the volume pretty low. Cool, now that I know how loud the fuzz is going to be, let's dial it in. I want a little more treble from the distortion. Now let's copy this to the stereo bass. Since these are hard panned, I'm going to activate the wicker switch to massage the high end a little bit. Okay, next is nothing. This is actually exactly the tone that I wanted from the distortion. Remember that when you're trying to achieve a subtle effect, sometimes less is more. If you're actively listening, you'll get your mix where you want much faster than if you're wasting time changing things that aren't necessary. In modern heavy music, it's really common to have distortion on the vocals. Here, I've got the vocals going through a send to a distortion bus. That means we're going to be able to hear the vocals really clearly, and I'll have a ton of control over the parallel distortion bus. Let's start with the basic controls. I want less distortion and a little brighter tone. Awesome, that's already crushing. Let's mess with the character in mids until the vocals get even more aggressive. Yep, that's sounding great. Let's just dial back the output so that it blends in with the original vocals. I'll never fall in line just to suffocate. I'd say that's ready to go. Just to suffocate. I'll never fall in line just to suffocate. The last example I'm going to show you today is a drum set. There's a lot of options when saturating drums. Do you want an overall warmer sound? Is this for a special effect or transition? And how recognizable do you want the drums to be? Let's start with an overall drum sound. I'm going to put fuzz right on the drum room track. Since these drum rooms sound great when they're crushed, it makes sense to take this all the way. I've got it set on normal mode, which means that there's no parallel processing and no bass boost. I want to affect the transients, so I'm going to boost the tone. I'm getting a little too much distortion and not enough saturation, so let's dial back the sustain. Awesome, that's sounding great. Now let's try out the alternate circuit. This fuzz style suits the drum room better. Now I'm just going to mess with the character in mids until it's even more saturated. Awesome. The last thing I think this track needs is a high pass. I don't really need any of the information under 100 Hz on this track, so let's filter it out. Sick, that's a good tone for the room mic. And that's it. Fuzz distortion is a great tool for adding grit and warmth to a sound. Just make sure you know what you're going for and use the mix knob wisely. If you push too far, it starts to have diminishing returns. What are some weird ways that you work with fuzz distortion in your mixes? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to check the links in the description below and tap that bell to get notified whenever we upload new videos. Until next time, happy mixing.